Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Thanks for joining in. We have questions loaded, ready to go. We have people from all over the United States and some from outside of the States. Let's talk fall beekeeping, a little bit of the Bee Expo, and also a new thing that we're doing. And we've talked about doing in the past a little bit, and that's memberships. We've had several subscribers ask for us to do this. And I've mentioned in the past, if we did this, we wouldn't change what we were already doing. We would just add some to it. And so that's what we will be doing. If you'll notice, Chris Medeiros, who, when he comments, has a little icon next to him. It's a little egg, a bee egg. And so the memberships is just a way of supporting us. There's two tiers, and we're still going to have all the regular content. So our normal YouTube videos, live chats like this. We're not going to have any in-person live chats or special videos made for members. We're not going to change any of that. We're going to keep doing what we're doing, but we are going to have one membership option, and that's just going to be $1.99. It just supports what we do, and no pressure to anybody to do that. We've had people ask, so we're doing it. And basically we can see your icons better and that kind of stuff. And then the higher tier one, we are going to have a text-based chat, kind of like a Facebook Messenger type group, for those people to be able to interact with me that way. But that's we're still going to produce all the videos the same as always, and it's not going to do anything crazy. And for that top tier, we're also going to have merchandise for 10% off as well. So just wanted to mention that real quick. We had several people ask. We finally did it. No pressure. We're here. We're going to continue to do live chats like this for absolutely no cost, whether you are supporting us by watching our videos, asking questions, membership, donating in the chat, or coming to the North American Honeybee Expo. You are helping change beekeeping as we know it, and we definitely need a lot of work done. So thanks everyone from all over the country. Let's get to some questions. Chris?
All right, we have our first question here from Dale.
All right, Dale. So he is with Apis Engineering, and they do a lot of stuff for artificial insemination and some queen rearing stands, incubators, all kinds of different things like that. We don't have the floor plan yet. We have most of the vendors ready to go. We've actually just launched the vendor page on the North American Honeybee Expo website. Not all the vendors are on there yet, so we're still waiting for about 30% of them to get their stuff to us. And then we're going to begin working on the floor plan. But we're hoping to have that a lot earlier this year, and it's definitely looking like that. Currently, one of my priorities is getting the speaker itinerary going, and we've been working on that the last week, and we just launched the last 24 hours the silent auction, which goes 100% to our next gen B program. All the next gen B program kids, there's like 42 of them that we were able to have this year because of all the increased activity in the silent auction and also donations here in various places, which is over 25% bigger than what we had last year. And we got a lot of cool things set up for them. So yes, lots of cool stuff with that, but we don't have the floor plan planned out yet. And we're going to have to do a lot of rearranging because we already have several more semi-loads of product coming, and it's very exciting. So we're also going to probably space out the booth so just a little bit more. Lot to do there. I want to make it a better experience for all the vendors and create more end caps and islands. I heard from John Hill that you identify as handsome. See, John has a hearing problem, Hell Hives, selective hearing syndrome. Unfortunately, a few people suffer from this, and it's really no joke. And John has got a very bad case of it. And, he just totally took a little thing and then ran with it because he enjoys that. And honestly, we're good buddies. And it was absolutely hilarious. My mother thought it was the greatest thing ever. So, all jokes aside from Hilco, which, by the way, one of my favorite things to call John, and I don't really call him this because I want to do that, but is Hillboy. There was a older gentleman who was like, "Yeah, I got that extractor from what's his name? That Hillboy," and that just stuck with me. So every now and then, when he gets on my nerves, I just call him Hillboy. That gets him. All right. Go to another question, Chris.
He's never going to let you live that down.
You know, that's all right. I'll live.
Okay, we have lots of questions pulling here. We'll try to get to them here. Here's one from Tristan.
Have you ever used Better Comb? Any thoughts? I actually never have, but a couple of my buddies do. Frederick Dunn, another one of my buddies down in Texas, has used it, and they say it works really good. Now, the price, if price is no object, that's the biggest problem with it. Is just the price to get into it. But the bees will use it, and then the other big thing is it really needs to be wired in. Frederick Dunn by far has the best video on embedding wires into Better Comb, and this will make it to where it won't sag and work great. I think for the brood nest, it makes a lot of sense. I don't really think for honey supers that. I mean, I'm not even sure if it's supposed to be used for that. I don't know a lot about it, but I do know it needs to be wired from people I trust, and bees do like it for brood, and will put food in it eventually. But there's a little bit of an adjustment phase. They won't just like always immediately take to it. Seems like some people say they go right to it, and some people are like it takes a week or so. But that's not too uncommon for bees. I've had deep combs that were just used for honey supers, and they've never had brood in them. And sometimes it takes the bees a little while to, I don't know if they're readjusting something. It doesn't smell enough like brood comb, whatever it is, but they're reluctant to fool with that. But it's kind of weird because they'll draw out some fresh stuff, and before it's even drawn all the way out, the queen can be laying eggs in it. Obviously, the bees know more about this than we do, but that's all I know about Better Comb.
All right, we'll get a donation here from Ross.
Hey, Ross, thank you very much. Can I use an InstaVap oxalic acid with a screen bottom board even if the board is in? I'm thinking about switching to a solid to make treatment more effective. You can use a screen bottom board. Obviously, the more of the vapor you can keep in there, the better, in my opinion. And when I've had a screen bottom board in the past, we just try to get some cloths. We'll usually get some damp cloths and we'll plug the entrance. If we can plug any of the back or anything else, we will do that. And I just usually add a little bit more oxalic acid or treat it twice. And that seems to work pretty good. I've never done a scientific type of side by side to determine if there's advantages, but I think it's just kind of common sense that there would be advantages to a solid bottom board. You got try to keep as much of that in there as possible, but maybe 2 treatments with it is good enough, and or does even better. Who knows?
Okay, Ross. Cool. Okay, you have 2 questions here about 1-to-1 and 2-to-1. So we'll start with the first one, Dwayne.
Is it a bad idea to jar feed inside the hive using 1-to-1 and 2-to-1 in separate jars, giving the bees an option? I don't think it's a bad idea. I just don't think it's really helpful necessarily either, because bees, we, we already know what the bees are going to prefer. They're going to prefer the thin stuff. Bees prefer sugar syrup and anything that's not nectar, as close to nectar as possible. And so if you set it outside of the hive, if you put it inside the hive, they'll take all of it, but they prefer the thin stuff. Honey is not what bees prefer. If you put a jar of honey in there and you put some 1-to-1, I'd bet $100 they're going to go for the 1-to-1. They want the thin stuff. And the honey is hardtack. They really prefer nectar quite a bit more. And there's some advantages, honestly, to nectar over honey. As nectar is ripening, hydrogen peroxide is created. It's fresher. Honey, as it gets older, is less and less beneficial to bees. And I think that just part of their programming is we want the thin stuff. And so, obviously, for beekeepers, though, we're thinking about not necessarily, hey, what do they prefer versus what they need. And if you need to add weight fast, 2-to-1 obviously is going to get you there twice as fast. So I think you just look at your bees and go, okay, it's warm out, it's plenty warm. 2-to-1's harder to mix. They like the 1-to-1. Give them to 1-to-1. But if I want to be fast, 2-to-1. It's really more about how thick it is than anything else and how much weight we're adding.
Okay, and we have this other one, unrelated, but also about feed here from Darren.
Making 2-to-1 feed. How do you keep it from crusting in feeders or the holes okay and getting blocked. Some batches are fine. Was wondering if it's getting too hot, mixing on stove, any tips. So basically what this is referring to is when you make 2-to-1, which is 2 parts sugar to 1 part water, you have sugar that comes out of suspension and it's way super saturated. And so what the bees do to prevent this and what humans have learned from bees is adding an enzyme, and that enzyme is invertase for the honeybee crop. And of course, in the human realm, we have a synthesized version of invertase, and it's called something very close to invertase. And they use it to make syrups for cooking and stuff. However, when you make it at home, you don't have that inverter, and so when that inversion happens, it really helps it not fall out of suspension. However, the bees are better at that than we are. I'm not one of those guys that's like, let's add stuff to our syrup to help the bees out with it. They're really good at this. So what I want to do instead of making 2-to-1 is make it a little bit thinner. So if we're doing fractions here, 2-to-1, then 4-to-2, 6-to-3, those are all the same thing. They're all technically 2-to-1. So I want you to think about it like that, but let's go 5-to-3. So it's a little bit thinner on the sugar than on the water. We want hot water for this. You can boil the water separately and then mix the sugar to the boiling water. Once that cold sugar hits that boiling water, it's going to cool it down. It's not going to make HMF. Now, if you boil it for a long period of time with the sugar in there, you can cause the darkening of the syrup, and that is not good. But you want that water stinking hot when you mix these thicker syrups, especially 2-to-1. I have very poor acceptance on making 2-to-1 and not having it falling out of suspension. When that happens, of course, it plugs the feeder holes or gets in the bottom of my frame feeders, and then it's just an absolute mess, and I hate that. So I never make 2-to-1 using white sugar. I go a little bit thinner on the sugar so I don't have that suspension problem. And if you use distilled water, you get a little bit of a better result, but then you have to pay for it. So I don't fool with that either. One other thing, if you use a Pro Sweet or a syrup that you purchase, it's already been inverted. And so you can dilute a Pro Sweet down and get it to 2-to-1 every time. And that's why I purchase Pro Sweet, and I have it in tanks and I just pump it out with actually this sucker right here. I'll pull it up in just a second. And then you just mix a little bit of water into it with a drill and you have 2-to-1, never have any suspension problems. It's fantastic. So let me grab this real quick. Whew. Oh yeah, built solid. So this is a Hilco honey pump right here. I have another one. It's actually got my logo and the Bee Expo logo on the other side of it. It's pretty cool. But I purchased this one after I got the other one because I needed multiple pumps, one for pumping syrup and one for honey. I have an old Kelly's pump, but I really wanted to retire that because it's like 40 something years old. It still works really good, but I am getting a little bit of bronze particles, a little bit. It's not a lot, and it gets caught in the filter, but I just can't clean it out. This one has a very easy clean out plate on the front. You just uh, take a hex, doggone it, one of those. I can't think of the name for it. Chris, what are those little bits, little angled corner bits? Dadgummit. This is ridiculous. Anyways, you just take that off the plate right there, and then you can clean that out. And there's really nice dairy fittings on there, and it'll pump syrup at 70 degrees without any heating at all or honey. And I really like that.
Think of your buddy from Rossman, Alan Key.
Allen wrench, and Allen wrench. Thank you.
Yeah, so, always think of Rossman.
Oh yeah. Well, Alan Blount is kind of a tool, so that'll work. They'll be easy to remember. No, we're buddies. So this right here is the Hilco pump, and it works really good for me. I like it stainless steel, easy to clean, goes forward and goes backwards. Alan, thank you, everybody. Goodness gracious, Allen wrenches. How in the world my grandpa would be ashamed? Okay, that was a little trickier holding up than I thought it would be. Apparently, all this office work for the expo is making me a little soft. Goodness. So, I wanted to say one thing really quick about the silent auction, really quick. And hey, Mission Believe, we're excited to have you guys back, and thanks for helping veterans. Good to see your comment there. Oh, I saw one earlier from Mary Ann and Larry Sears. Here it is from West Virginia. And I wanted to say thank you to you guys as well. And there's other people in this group. Not everyone goes by their name, so it's hard to keep track of who's who. But you all have donated a lot to the silent auction. You guys make a lot of wooden crafts. They're very beautiful, and that money that is raised in the silent auction goes to helping these kids out. And we've got the best group of kids we've ever had before, and we have some cool stuff for them and some cool, not just cool stuff, but we have some cool classes prepared for them. Some good education. I'm very excited about that. Thank you for giving Reed Wells an Expo scholarship. He's going to be a great beekeeper. A lot of these beekeepers already are. It's really humbling to see these teenagers who are well advanced, way advanced, further along than I was at their age. And it just makes you excited. Very excited. All right. Give me another question, Chris.
Yeah, we got lots of questions here. Lots of questions. One for Jennifer King.
Hey, Jennifer, first time wax rendering this year and have done about 10 pounds. That is gorgeous and all clean. I want to do some dip tapers. Have you done this? And what wick materials do you recommend? Thanks. Good question. Bad person to ask. So I have never made a candle in my life. I think it's really cool, and I love burning beeswax candles. We are actually looking into having someone at the expo do a class for this because I would like to take the class myself. I really don't know anything about that. I know Bob Benny has at least one video on candle making that they do there at Blue Ridge. That was the first video I ever saw of Bob Benny. I had a friend of mine send that to me and then send me another one later. And he's like, "What do you think of this guy?" And I was like, "Wow, that guy's legit." And you got to understand that in my early years in beekeeping, there was a few guys that were kind of in that realm. There's several good guys on YouTube and gals, but it's more sideliner and hobbyist stuff. And Bob's really good, I think, at touching things from top to bottom, though. And Bob obviously is at a very elite level. It was just a moment I was like, wow, this guy is really good. And I wasn't wrong. Yeah, he's really good and even nicer than you would think. Super nice person. But I'd watch that. Sorry, I don't have anything else for your candle stuff.
Yeah, it's one of his primary videos. If you go to his channel, it pops for me all the time. So
Awesome.
okay, the Morris Homestead.
What should I do if my double deep is honey bound from a heavy fall flow? There's no room for the queen to lay. If you don't have any drawn combs, you need to probably sling some of that out. Or if you have multiple hives, you could take some drawn combs that don't have much from another hive and put some heavy frames of honey into the others. But the queen does need to have room to lay, excuse me. So that's what I would do. Fall flows are really frustrating. Most years we don't have a good fall flow, and so it's disappointing. And then the year we think we're not going to get a fall flow, we have strong doubles, and it just backfills everything. And so you kind of have to really watch it. Most of the time, I end up feeding though, and that's what I'm doing this year. Just we've had a drought. Yeah, Jake Osborne, what's a heavy fall flow? Right, the fall flow is something I don't bank on. I just don't. You're going to be disappointed more times than not in most regions. And so what I just look at is like, I'm going to watch it and hope that we can gain a little bit of weight. And I'm going to be planning on feeding and taking care of my bees during the late August and September, especially all the way through September, early October. We are August, September, man, in important times of the year for healthy winter bees in a big cluster. Um, Crucial. So It's a tough spot to be in. That's what I would do.
All right, we just got a question from John here for you.
It came in what your topic's going to be for the Virginia State meeting. That's a good question. I'd have to look it up to be honest. I can't remember off the top of my head. I've got a few meetings coming up, and I probably tell you wrong, but probably something about bees. I would think.
Nothing
Sorry,
about being handsome or how to dress like handsome fella.
I don't know what you're talking about, Chris. That's if you got it, you got it. There's no work involved. All right,
Yeah.
next. So I want to say thanks to the Tar Heel beekeeper Randy. I got some of his sourwood honey, and he sent that just as a surprise. And it won't focus for whatever reason, but this stuff is really, really good. And I just wanted to say thanks, Randy, for that. Good, real sourwood honey is special.
Well, and you got to tell them the real truth about how you used that earlier, and you showed it off.
Oh yeah, it was a show and tell. They were asking about different flavors of honey, and I mentioned sourwood and said, Randy, he's kind of like a blind hog. Every now and then he finds an acorn.
That's not what I said.
Okay.
All right, next one from HD Honeybee.
Have you ever heard of a queen living all alone? I found a queen in my own equipment. She was sitting on sugar all alone. So she won't last that way very long. Sometimes a virgin's coming back or bees abscond, and you'll see these weird incidents like this. I raise queens, and there's some times where we'll have virgins come back and maybe they get blown off course. They just run out of energy and they just park somewhere. And a lot of times, how I find them in the springtime is there'll be a handful of bees flying around a leaf where she's sitting or whatever. But there's weird things like this that happen. But the queen cannot live alone very long. She's going to die of exposure or something eating her before too long. Queens just can't be by themselves for very long.
Awesome. Okay, question here from Thomas.
Can't even get the bees to rob my cappings wax right now. That's how much they prefer the real stuff. Yep, that's a good point. And it's amazing the bee's disposition during a flow. It's easier to requeen a hive. It's easier to split a hive. It's easier to work the hive. It's easier to do everything during a flow, except maybe keep the bees from swarming. Bees are just more fun. And that's another thing. It's really difficult to do. I've been in a situation where I'm like, I've got these supers and I really need them robbed out. And dadgummit, there's a flow going on right now. But it shut down in a couple weeks, and boy, they cleaned them right on out of there.
A question here from Carmine.
Hi, Cayman. I've read that other than doing oxalic acid treatments, a 5-frame nuke can't be treated with Formic Pro. I have a resource to nuke 5 frames over 5 frames that I would like to treat. So if it's a strong 10 frames of bees, you might be able to do it. But I know guys who are cutting, like using one pad. And I know some guys who are cutting those in half and using like half of a half dose. And so obviously that's not on the label. The problem is though these labels have to be very simple and rigid. The more complex they are, the more expensive. And I mean it gets really expensive for the companies. They don't want to pay that. And they have to get researchers to actually do the research and test it. I don't know where you're at. I've never done this personally as far as anything less than a 1 pad treatment with Formic Pro. I would I'm not a big fan of using Apiguard or Formic unless the bees are quite strong and quite healthy. And so this is where I would hopefully find someone who is very successful doing this. And then I wouldn't do it to all of my bees either. Just try it in little dosages. Formic and Apiguard can shut the queens down. And that's why we urge people to treat in August and late July so that the bees shut down if they're going to shut down for a few days then. And so right now when bees should be going, in my opinion, full throttle to building up for that winter cluster, we don't have any shutdown period. Now I know some beekeepers, okay, New York, they want their bees to kind of shut down right at the end of the fall. And so it's just different management strategies. I'm really not an expert. in regard to that. I just use Formic when the bees are double deeps and strong, and I usually only use the one pad method.
Hey, just check your chat. I sent you something. While I pull up this next question. Next question here is from Jessica. Posting it right now.
All right. Did an inspection today. Bottom brood box was empty except a few resource frames of honey and bee bread. Top box full of eggs, brood, and resources. Better to remove bottom box before winter. So the bottom box was empty, and the honey top box was full of eggs and brood and resources. So maybe not. I don't know where you're at. Maybe you still have a good bit of season left. If you're in the further south, there might be a lot of brooding yet to do. But that queen might need some room to lay, especially if there's a fall flow fixing to happen or is happening. You can pull like 2 of those combs down below, pull them up into the top box. Don't put any brood down below, but you can bring up a little bit of some space for her to lay. I don't really know where you're at. If it's fixing to be cold soon, I definitely wouldn't rotate boxes or anything like that. But that's where I would be. Okay, Virginia. So I would be looking. We need to keep our queen in laying room, and so I want to make sure that she's laying full throttle to get a big winter cluster. But that kind of can happen from time to time. My main focus right now is getting as much brood and also getting as much food into those bees. If they end up being a really good 8-frame, 10-frame cluster of bees, they're going to need about a deep box of food to go through most winters. And that might be a little bit much sometimes, but better too much than too little. The bees will know they have excess food and therefore build up faster coming out of winter. So maybe just bring up a frame or 2 of empty comb to make sure that queen's laying if they don't have any extra room up in the top box for her. Chris, I saw that comment. Go ahead and bring it up. I think I'm going to take it anyways. So Brian says, I invite everyone to look at the cost of the honeybee convention. This needs to be addressed to allow more people the chance to come. And so, Brian, I say, we pay a lot of money to do that. I'm not going to go into all the details because that would take a lot of time, a lot of time. But just to have my speakers, the audio-visual team, and the recordings that come with the tickets, that's about $100,000 right there. That's a lot of money. This isn't your average conference, so it's not going to have your average price of $50 where you're going to sit around and go, that was okay. We have a great experience. It takes a lot of money to do that. And the vendors offer so many deals at the expo. If you're buying a decent amount of stuff, you're going to at least pay for the ticket. Just John Hill alone, you buy an extractor from John or an uncapping tank, you're gonna save that money right there. We have feed on heavy discount more this year. And there's a lot of other things too. You get the recordings for it from some of the best speakers. So the value is there. I'm not saying, hey, everyone needs to come. We all have different budgets. And I totally understand that. And thankfully, there's other conferences around the country that are $50, but I'm seeing more and more of the state conferences go closer to 100 because honestly, inflation affects everybody. And, we have a lot of team members that have to be put up in hotels. Goodness, I'll probably pay for 100 hotel rooms this year. So anyways, that's just a little snippet into that. It's necessary to do so. And I need to hire somebody full time because I'm having to work 85 to 90 hours every week just to make everything run right now. And it's not fun.
In case you see white smoke billowing in the background, that's just Cayman's gears grinding. So lack of honey in between the gears. So, all right, we have
yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got honey to extract right now. I need to be extracting honey right now. I need to be releasing YouTube videos right now. I'm helping write a book right now. Oops, am I supposed to say that, Chris? I think I can say that. I did. So yeah, there's just a lot of work to be done.
And you don't need to go into them all, and I'm not going to post them all, but anyone in the chat can ask the people who are posting positive things, and we'll just leave it at that. So obviously everyone's entitled to their opinion. Just appreciate you sharing that. All right, here's a question from Link in the Newfoundland.
I live in Newfoundland and have a late season swarm. Best way to overwinter? Not likely. Even here in Tennessee, we get some late swarms in August and stuff, and it's just so hard to make it work. There's not enough time. Even if you give them comb, they've got to have momentum. And I don't have much of a winter. You guys, goodness, serious winters. I personally would just combine that back with a stronger colony and help them that other colony out. All the old bee literature says to do this as well, and they're right. My fall swarm success rate is probably 1 out of like 30, maybe a little bit better than that, but it's not good. And they're not coming out of winter looking well. And I don't have much of a winter. We get our first pollens in February, and we can be 60 degrees Fahrenheit in December. I just don't think there's any chance of that happening, especially this late. So I would maybe put them in their own box, give them a little bit of feed, treat them with oxalic acid vapor before any brood is capped so we kill any mites that are in there. And then I'm going to paper combine that back to one of my other colonies and help have a nice big cluster and help that other hive out. That's what I would do.
Awesome. We have. We have a question here from Jeff.
What is your preferred method to feed after temps are too cold for syrup? Sugar bricks. They're cheap and easy. So we're going to add 10 pounds of sugar to a 5-gallon bucket, and then we are going to take anywhere between about a cup of water. You can do a little bit less than that, but half cup to a cup of warm water. It doesn't really matter too much. And then we're just going to take a drill bit or a paint mixer on a drill, and we're going to just stir that up. And it's going to feel like wet sand to a degree, just slightly damp, not enough to make syrup or anything. And then we're going to pack that into trays that can fit under a shim that we make, and you can put that right above the colony. But if they're in a double deep and all the bees are in the bottom box, it's useless. So you need to have that sugar brick directly in contact with the cluster. And the bees will use some of the condensation to dilute that sugar brick down, and then you'll be in good shape. But sugar bricks are good for that. I mean, fondant is better. The bees will consume fondant quicker, and they'll take it better. But fondant's very expensive, and shipping on it is even more expensive. We're looking at maybe having a bulk fondant buy at the expo possibly this year. We are going into bulk syrup this year, and we always have bulk pollen substitutes and other stuff like that at about half of what a hobby beekeeper can get them for at the expo. But honestly, my favorite way to feed, as I'm sure you know, is start feeding now. Get that on there. I hate emergency feeding because it's just a lot of extra work and I don't want to do it. So feed them sugar syrup now, let the bees take care of it. And there's always a few that end up being light though. And so for that, we'll use sugar bricks.
That video I posted there for you and Jeff, that's your YouTube link for your sugar bricks for winter feeding. So
thanks, Chris.
Okay, so Jeff had that question. Next up, you had Jennifer. Back to your candle. She asked about making it a class. So add that to your list.
And we may if it's something that we
don't
seriously
do it in a room with carpet.
Right. Yeah, we'll have to talk to the expo people about that. Probably have to put some plastic down, but so we're looking at some different styles of classes, and some of them it'll be in addition. So we're going to still have our normal offerings, but we're going to have a microscope class. We've just about got that ironed out and announced. And I just talked to Corey about having an artificial insemination class where we're going to bring some virgin queens in from Hawaii. And these are going to be a lot more intensive and educational and, smaller groupings. So if it's just a general talk on it, obviously that's going to be just available for everybody. But if it's actually going to be hands-on and we're going to actually supply some stuff to make some candles there, we have some costs that we have to cover. But we try to keep it all as affordable as possible. And with these classes, we've got it priced down as low as we can. Basically, it just pays for itself because we're really trying to offer a service more than we're trying to profit off of this. But it would be cool to have. I'm taking the microscope class myself. I think it's going to be priced around $30-$35 a person, but it's going to be a very small group setting of about 10 to 20 people. No more than 2 people are sharing a microscope, and it's going to be stinking cool. I'm seeing all the details on this end. I'm taking it. Chris, you're going to have to, if the expo starts burning to the ground, just don't tell me until after the class is over. I want to enjoy this.
Duly noted. Duly noted. Okay, have a. I see we just had a donation. We'll get to the donation after this question. We have a question here from Sherry. It should be pretty quick for you.
I have a 5-gallon pail of 2-to-1 syrup still from last fall that was stored in a cool, dark place. It is slightly fermented. I'm assuming I should ditch it. So that's something that, like, if it's slightly fermented, I would feed that during the regular season, but I wouldn't feed it to bees, like, if it's just slightly fermented. And what I might do is add a little bit of Hive Alive or something like that with a little thiamol or something to maybe nuke anything that could be floating around in there. But going into winter as a long-term winter feed that they may store and then use for winter, then absolutely not. So if I had to chuck that, then what I would do is dilute that, and I'd actually put it on my garden, because sugar in high concentrations will kill grass and kill plants, but over a long period of time, it's actually pretty good for your garden. And so, and I would do that. I'd definitely get some value out of that sugar.
All right. Paul was asking about your memberships here. I don't know if you want to share your screen and show where that goes. If you have, although you probably aren't a good person to do that.
Hey! What are you trying to say? I'm technologically illiterate?
No, it's on. It won't show up for you on your side because it's your channel. um, if you go to the video, any video Cayman has, or you go to the home channel next to the subscribe button, it should say join. Of course, it doesn't have anything else on it. It just says join. You click that, and it'll give you the 2 different tiers of the membership. And if you want to, you can pick one.
Let's see here. So, Thomas,
I wish I muted Cayman.
Yeah. Chris muted Cayman. No. He just doesn't think I can handle it myself. I'm a big kid now. So, let's see here. Yeah, you can go to the join thing, and I'll probably make a video on that specifically. I'm a little, it's something that we've known that we could do on YouTube for a couple of years, I think, but it's just something that I've been really hesitant to do. We want this to be available as it has always been, and so we're going to continue to do that. So I had to sit down a while and think, what kind of benefits could we provide to justify that? Oh, Jonathan Flint, thank you guys, and thanks Paul also for donating, because you guys, both of you and several others have supported us so much and got us to this point. And I just want to say that to the comments about the mission of beekeeping should be more or less, I think some of the attitude is it should be free because we're saving the bees and doing all this. That's just not how the real world works. It's not. It takes money. There's so many speakers, and some of them charge a lot, and they really deserve it. These guys are running, some of them, $1 million businesses. Their time is valuable. They have employees that depend on them. If they're going to take time away from that production, that's what their value is. They're going to charge me for it. And my staff, guys like Chris, I know he doesn't seem like he's worth much, but he's actually pretty darn valuable. We could not do what we're doing without Chris, but Chris has got a family. We got to take care of Chris. And there's just a lot of stuff to go with. This part of the problem with beekeeping conferences and why they have diminished over the years is because we're still running them like it's 1968. And I love beekeeping for how old fashioned it is, but I think we got to treat everything like a business. It's got to be worthwhile. Now, is it like I've got to be making money Not necessarily. If you've got 3 hives, though, you need to, I think, still have a business attitude. This is how much money I spend on my bee equipment. This is what I can do to preserve that. This is what I can do to be successful with my bees. Is this a knick-knack? Should I be investing into all of these 50 a cent per gallon syrup preservatives? That's a little expensive. Do I really need that? And so the people who are saying there's no money in beekeeping, I honestly think it's a perspective. And also, a calculator is one of the most valuable tools that you can have. And we've got beekeeping has got to get back to what we were back in our grandpa's era, when our grandpas were like, we just went through a world war, a depression, and we've got to provide. And my time is valuable. I could be spending time with my kids, and they're growing up more by the day. So I've got to put this energy and make it as efficient as possible for myself and everyone else. And, you know, too many of these conferences that I speak at, they're not organized very well and they don't offer very much, but the person who's running them is always used and abused. And they don't, usually within a year or two, they get out, and the conferences aren't near as good because they have to retrain somebody to do it. And there's not enough helpers. And you know what helps you find good helpers and good staff is paying them some money. Boy, it seems to motivate people. And it's not just them, it's your spouse. Hey, isn't that right, Chris?
Yep.
Okay.
I think Thomas hits the nail on the head here.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's as simple as it could be said. And I hate driving a truck. Thank you guys for so much for helping me get out of semi truck driving and all that kind of stuff. Hey, thank you so much. That's Miss Sweden right there. Boy, it's got to be like almost 2 a.m. your time. Thank you so much for supporting our youth program again. And I can't wait to show you the young boys and girls this year. I would be intimidated, honestly, being the same age as them and going in the same class. Very impressive. Tomorrow's leaders. So, all right, let's get back to some regular bee questions.
Yeah, I wanted to point out, since I actually can talk to Yasmin here since she's listening, she has to stop posting the really cool photos of how beautiful her country is. It's flat in Ohio, and I have houses around me, and I don't have these gorgeous mountains and streams like she does. So I'm just jealous. So okay, question here from David. This is a really neat one.
I tried a 2-queen hive this year. Do I need to split the hive for winter so both queens can get to the winter feed? So that is a question for someone probably like Bob Benny. I've never intentionally ran a 2-queen hive before, and what little I know about it is kind of foggy. It's been a while since I've read up on that in the ABJ, American Bee Journals, or in some old bee literature. Now, when I see 2 queens in my hive, they've done that on their own. And they say that supposedly up to 10% of hives have 2 queens in them at some point during the year. Is it long term? I don't know. I wonder at this point, David, if they're so used to both queens now that if you pulled the excluder, that if they would just kind of let both queens survive. Queens typically that are laying don't really seek out the other and go sting them. It's virgin queens that are really aggressive towards that. So if one of the queens gets killed, it's more than likely, like 90% chance, that it's going to be the bees that kill one of the queens versus one queen going off and killing the other one. So it's very likely, in my opinion, I wouldn't say I'm an expert at this at all. Bob, this is a good Bob question, but likely they would integrate. And the only reason they would kill one at this point, being together for so long, is if one of the queens wasn't performing to their liking. Let me know what happens, David, if you catch us on another live chat or in our Cayman Reynolds Facebook group. I'm very curious to hear the results.
Just want to show our new members here: David Hunter.
Thank you, David.
And Delinda.
Oh, wow. We got more than...
Yeah. And then St. John.
Thank you, St. John. St. John again. And for all of our members, thank you very much. And thanks, David Hunter, who's supported a lot. Oh, here we go again for the Next Gen Bee program. And at this point, everything that's going towards that is now going towards the next year, since this year's applicants are already taken care of. And so a lot of people, I actually make a video on this, but I just like to explain a little bit, what does this money go towards? It's not just $300 to go towards their hotel. It's not just the tickets and the t-shirts and the stuff for them and their guardian, but there's also, we're getting them queen marking pins, bee suits. We're getting them some special classes for them as well. And those rooms do cost money. And we're also getting them some other odds and ends. And we really don't want to say what they are right now because it's kind of spoil it for them. So it goes towards a lot of things, and it goes a little bit to helping some of our staff be able to run this. There's a lot of hours that gets put into that, and we'd love for everything to be volunteer based, but there's way too much work. I don't know how many hours it takes to pull this conference off, but it's probably, between Chris, Laurel, and myself alone, probably a year and a half's worth of labor on the low end. And then there's all the other folks as well. Hey, Jonathan, thanks for joining. Brian, thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. Of course. Now we got our first, as far as I know, member from afar. So out of country, thank you so much. All right. As a vendor, how do I donate to the auction? Is it too late? Great question. Thanks for bringing that up, Matthew. So on the North American Honeybee Expo page, there is a silent auction, a page for that. And now we have several more pages to look at. And it's a very simple, there's two forms. There's an online form, and whether you're a vendor or just an attendee who wants to support the kids, there's the online form. If you fill that out, super simple, that goes to my mother, and then she keeps record of that. And you can also email her and say, hey, we're this booth. Could you send somebody over? And we'll have staff, and we'll have a notation, and we can send one of our guys or gals over to go pick that up with a dolly, or you can bring it over yourself at the booth. We'll also send you an email out letting you know where that's at. And then there is a PDF paper copy that's very simple. And so whenever you bring your item, whether it's a hive or whether it's a hive tool or whatever it is, you just kind of have written down, this is this item, the description, starting bid, and what it's worth. And that, it's very simple. But thanks for asking that question. And we really appreciate everyone who donates towards that. And that funds that. We haven't encountered this yet, but if we ever do go past what is needed for the youth program, we're probably going to put that into our honey show or something else like that. Our honey show is something we want to see grow. Unfortunately, we have no clue how many entries there will be this year. It is shaping up to be another huge year. And so last year we had about almost 1,200 entries. So we're getting a bigger location for the honey show. And there's just a lot of new logistics with all the expanding trade show and expanding honey show and the expanding youth program. So again, thanks everybody. Do we have any bee questions, Chris, or anything that we've got to get to that's kind of critical?
Well, just real quick about the expo. I'm sure other people have this question, so I figured you could answer it.
Do you need any volunteers? If so, do we get any discounts? So we have so many people, I mean, hundreds who ask to volunteer. We have different tiers, people who help with check-in, and just like do a slight little bit. They may just get, a lot of them just want to help. And so they just get maybe a hat and a t-shirt and they just help with that. And then they're good to go. Some people that help out a little bit more than that, load in, they're getting a free ticket for sure. And some of the guys who are, just working most of the expo, of course, we are doing way more than that. Hotels, we are, some of these guys are getting compensated as well. And so, and well deserved. I mean, guys like Chris and Jeremy Lindsay, they just work the whole time, before and after, and it's long before it starts and long after it starts. And obviously they're giving up vacation time as well, and we respect that. Vacation time is precious, so we don't fool around. And so yeah, there's different tiers to that. We usually are pretty set with people, but as it expands, we always have to add a few more.
All right, you have a question here from G. Clark about Hawaiian queens.
I ordered 2 Hawaiian Carney queens, and they were extremely slow layers. Is that normal? Well, If they're really good queens, it doesn't matter where they're from. They shouldn't be slow layers if all the conditions are right. If there's plenty of resources and the bees are healthy and everything's good, they should lay really good, just like any other queen. But these days, when I visited Hawaii last, everyone seems to be pretty laid back. So maybe it's kind of affecting the queens too. Some of those a little too much purple palm tree delight going around, smoking the bees with that might affect the queens. I don't know. No, that's kind of strange. I've ordered a lot of queens in the past myself, G. Clark, and it really just depends on how well they're mated typically. And of course, if you're putting them into a slow situation like a dearth, it's going to be hard for them to take off. It's all about momentum. And when there's a lot of nutrition coming in, it's easy for the bees to gain ground. But when we're in a dearth period or in a bad performing fall flow and the colony's got kind of had a brood hiccup for a while, then that does really affect them, and it's really hard for any great queen to come in and fix that. But I've had some queens from all over the country: California, Georgia, Hawaii, Vermont, my own queens, Florida, and even in ideal situations, you'll get some of these queens that you purchase, and I just don't think they're mated properly. A lot of times, the genetics are good. A lot of these queen breeders actually are really good with genetics. The problem is along the way of making tens and tens of thousands and some of them hundreds of thousands of queens, they just cannot provide the mating opportunities that sometimes queens need. And that will affect the queen's performance big time.
Okay, so we're don't have any more current questions. But I do want to make a note. I did do some quick research, and I totally forgot. I should have known this. If you're on an iPhone specifically and in the YouTube app, you will not be able to join the subscription on the app because of Apple and Google's forever war about payments. So you can do one of two things. You can either just go to a computer and join on any browser, or on your iPhone, you're able to open your browser and go to the mobile website, which is m.youtube.com, and sign in, and then you can subscribe through your browser. You cannot subscribe, unfortunately, in the app. So it's an Apple thing. It's been going on forever. So that's the issue there. So that we Cayman can't do anything about that. So yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry. Okay, here G. Clark had a addition there for you.
They were added early and fed great, but small brood patterns, and the bees killed her and made new, and they're doing great. Yep. So that tells me poorly mated queen right there. And that's there's two big things that really changed beekeeping for me that made it profitable and honestly a lot more fun. And that was having very low mite counts in August and late July and August. And obviously low counts in September too, but focusing on keeping the mites low throughout the season and never letting the mites build up. I don't like this idea we have in Tennessee and other regions that we just will let the mites build up and get almost to the point of being super critical and then do one treatment. Start early. Never even let most of those mites ever spawn. And use gentle treatments to do it. That helped me a ton. And then raising my own queens or being able to source some high quality queens from some of my friends who do it right and in smaller batches makes a huge difference. And the bees are really good at raising queens in ideal situations. So as tricky as it is to raise queens grafting, I highly recommend people who are doing a small backyard. You can still raise your own queens. Hey, that's what we like to hear right there. You can either learn to graft or you can just pay attention and force colonies to kind of swarm during ideal times of the year. And then you can run some wax foundation just specifically for that. I really like the Apame frames where you can just take a piece of wax foundation, press it in between, and have this in some hives dedicated to cause them to swarm on purpose. But we're not going to let them swarm. We're going to get them in the swarm mode, excuse me. And then once we condense them down and they're really cramped, it's a perfect time of the spring. We're going to go in there and we're going to take a scalpel and we're going to cut those cells out after they're capped. And we're going to make up our splits with that. And wonderful queens will come from those cells. And if you do it properly, you won't lose your swarm. You'll raise some queens without grafting, and you'll find that they're way better than what you can purchase, and about $40 a piece cheaper or more.
All right, we have a new member for you.
Hey, Eric, thanks for joining the club. Look forward to being able to work with you guys in that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the comments from that and seeing the little icons. That'll, whenever you comment in a video, we'll be able to see that. And of course, isn't that supposed to show up in here as well, Chris?
Yeah, it just doesn't show in StreamYard. That's that little icon next to his name.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's a way to get that to come over. I can look that, but in YouTube chat you can see it
Oh,
just fine. So
oh yeah, I can see it in the question area. Yeah, I can see all the eggs and stuff. Very cool.
yeah.
So those will graduate every periodically, and eventually you guys will hatch into a worker bee. That was Chris's idea, but it was either that or really lame stars that looked like we were all in kindergarten. Okay, so thank you, Chris, for putting in that extra work, even though I didn't ask for it. That's super awesome.
All right, got a question here, short one here from Jonathan.
Any hive lifters being sold at the expo? Not a big fan. Not the big one for a flatbed. Haha. So that is one of the frustrations that I've had in the last couple of years is I've reached out to these companies, multiple companies that have the automatic lifters, one in Canada, one here in the US, and a couple overseas, and I can't get any of them to come to it. I don't understand why. I think it's because most of them are very small businesses, and most of the time, the small businesses don't find conferences worthwhile. One of the number one things I've learned in doing an expo is that the vendors are very unhappy with most of the conferences they go to. Not all of them, but it stands to reason. They could be staying home, going to these things. It's a lot of work, and then if you go and you lose thousands of dollars on it, that's a big bummer. And we understand that. So we really try. It's very much a difficult balance to justify a big show and a big expense like this to these vendors. And it's taken us years to gain their trust, working with them on YouTube and at the expo. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the reason it's worked is because we've made this profitable for the companies. It's that simple. That's the only way we're able to get semi loads of product, get the big discounts that we get on pollen sub and other categories. It's profitable. It's worth their time, and we have to continue to do that. It's a balancing act, and boy, I've learned a lot from it. But that's one of them. Hey, Jonathan, why don't you make some hive lifters? Make a good quality one. We'll do a YouTube video on it, and then we'll have those at the expo. Sorry, I can't help you though. I've actually been a little disappointed with the one I've done a video on, the one from Canada. I've only had it a couple years and used it maybe 30 hours, and the battery's already just it won't charge and hold a charge for me. So I'm just, how do you like that?
Question here from Hill Hives.
Hey, Hell Hives. So other than a zapper, is there any other bee safe method to eradicate wax moths before the eggs are laid and larvae start to take over? You know, the only thing I know that works for sure is besides keeping a good bit of bees in there is, well, having them in the freezer or having paramoth crystals on them, especially if it's brood combs. A bee safe method to eradicate wax moths. There are people that talk about this BT product, the Sertan, and there's another one out there that you can spray. And just when I hear from multiple sources that it's perfect and works wonderfully, somebody will post and go, "Oh my goodness, I used this properly on everything, and these wax moths just destroyed all my honey supers and brood comb. This product doesn't work." So, yeah, I don't know of anything like that. Keep bees on them, keep them in the freezer. Paramoth crystals work really good if it's honey supers and they're vented properly and stored good. They can, a lot of times you can keep them without any of those things, but it's kind of touch and go. A lot of times we get a little bit of damage in the ones that we don't use anything on. And I've been talking to Laurel about it. I really want to build a honey house and then have a hot room, cold room. So when we're heating up our honey supers to about 95 degrees to extract fast. We can warm up the room, and then it'll be insulated. So then we'll all, in addition, have a device that'll chill it down to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and that will then be our storage room for our honey supers once they're extracted until it's the season's over. So that'll happen like 5 to 10 years from now, not anytime soon. It's a conundrum.
All right, you have a question here from Central Kentucky Bees.
All right, Cayman, I know you love making queens and splits. Have you ever thought of getting the unit to artificially inseminate your own queens? It's pricey, but why don't bigger operations do this? Some of them do, but it's few and far between, and most of them, again, find it more profitable to let someone who's more knowledgeable and skilled to do this work for them. And so they will purchase artificial inseminated queens from like Joe Latshaw or maybe someone like Corey Stevens, other organizations. I can't even keep track of them. I don't really get into that too much. I really like the way that I've been doing it. And a lot of the guys I look up to just really focus on keeping records on their queens. This is how long they've lasted. They aren't creating high mite loads. I don't get really, really technical on the Varroa mite stuff like VSH and all that. Maybe one day. But I don't find it something super exciting to me. And I don't have the time to fool with it either. I just don't. I don't like the idea of having to do artificial insemination on queens. I think bees thrive on diversity, and I want to focus more on controlling the drones in my mating areas and just focusing on those genetics. And that seems to have worked really good for me. If I do go the route of focus more on Varroa genetics, I really just want to let an expert who's already fully dedicated and knows more to do that for me. But I find it fascinating. We're likely going to have an AI class at the expo. And but we definitely need more people doing genetics. Genetics is always part of the solution. I don't think it's the whole solution, but it's definitely part of it. Mm-hmm. I just want to thank everyone who's making the Expo Next Gen program happen. Our son is really excited about the program. This will be our first year, and we can't wait. Hey, Amy, thanks for saying that. We really appreciate that very much. I designed this based around the idea that I made a lot of mistakes in my teens, and it also many times feels like you're on an island, even just as a beekeeper in general, but especially when you're a kid in beekeeping or in agriculture, you're kind of an odd duck nowadays. And so many times it's nice to have some encouragement. So having some other interested young men and women close to your age and realizing that you're not the only one out there. And also there's a big bee community that values you and also get to just see all the cool stuff and get to meet guys like Frederick Dunn and Bob Binney. And, we're going to have Randy Oliver there and just several other people. And also realize how short I am. A lot of the guys are looking down to me, and they're like Mr. Reynolds, and they're like a head taller than I am at least. And we want the community to wrap around these individuals. They're precious to this industry. And I see what guys like Blake Shook has done. Blake Shook is inspiring to me. If you don't know of him, Amy, I would look into him. He'll be speaking once again at the conference, probably just one lecture this year, but he runs several businesses and is doing more behind the scenes than anybody else in his age group. He's definitely my rival, and I want to surpass him in some form or fashion. But no, he's a good friend. And when you get these people into these industries young, the potential is great, and our industry needs that.
I think you guys are more like Mario and Luigi. You're more the Luigi, and he's more the Mario.
Whoa, Mario is shorter than Luigi. Don't take that away from me. That's my thing.
Yeah, but you're weirder, so hence the Luigi.
It's a me.
Okay.
All right. Please go
real quick on just you were touching on the expo, so I'll let you answer Amber's question.
Is there a schedule up and a list of the classes you're offering in workshops? So I'm working on that right now, Amber, and we're getting that back from the speakers. And we have some of the speakers their topics already. We're also trying to make sure there's not a lot of overlap and focusing on what's the most useful and not have too much overlap from last year as well. And we're really trying to have one of the rooms is a very unique setup this year. So we are doing that right now. I'm hoping to have all of that lined up within a month. And so we'll have that to you guys maybe sooner. But many of these speakers are extremely busy getting their bees ready for winter. And so I'm going at them as fast as I can to get this done. And the workshop for the microscope class, I think, will be done here in the next week or so. So just keep coming back to the website. It'll be on there. We're also going to have a class for people wanting to get really good at honey shows. I wanted to have that last year, couldn't make it work. We are having that this year, along with a microscope class and possibly an artificial insemination class. I want to say a big thanks. Oh, you need to wear skinny jeans. Be like, oh, that was a low blow, but I appreciate that, and I'm going to bring that back up to Blake next time I see him. However, Blake can kind of pull him off. He's a little bit on the slim side. The dude needs to eat a sandwich. You put a guy like me in skinny jeans, and we're all going to be hurting.
He just needs to eat more Texas barbecue. Let's be all honest about this. He's in Texas. That just shows you how much he's out in the bee yard working. So
yeah, I've got to talk to him about that. All that fat and oil and fried everything down in Texas. Obviously, the boy is not eating enough. I want to say a big thanks to Bonnie Joseph for a lot of reasons. She's been massively supportive of our youth program and us over the years, and just been a really good person in the bee community. And I really appreciate her and her husband. And God bless you guys. Thank you very much, Bonnie, for joining our group too. All right, Chris, we got more questions.
Yeah, we got two more here that are current. Okay, answer this one quickly. Just kidding. Here's G. Clark.
Do you requeen all your hives every year? I have 4 great queens that are still great and going into fall in our brick layers. I requeen most of my hives each year, and the bees requeen themselves pretty often as well. We almost mark everything nowadays, and this is really eye-opening as we see just how much bees requeen themselves without us realizing it. For us, we see most of the requeening after the honey flow is over, and that's pretty normal. It's actually a really good thing for them to wait till after most of the work's done after the honey flow. There's still good mating in June. And so we see a lot of it happen then. But then there's some colonies that for whatever reason, don't requeen themselves. And they'll ride that poor queen, if she is poor, all the way to their doom. And that's just one of nature's ways of eliminating those genetics. As beekeepers, we want to keep them, though. So I always have backup queens. I am queen rich all year long. If I have 100 hives, I want to have 25 extra queens in my back pocket and nukes. And I requeen at least 80% of my operation a year. Now, those that we are our breeder queens, we let them live as long as possible. We need to be able to gauge our breeders at for the longevity, long-term honey production. Obviously, we want to breed for that. But there are significant advantages to having young queens. They have better chances of survival, bigger winter clusters. They want to swarm less. They're just better. And all you have to do is the math on how much queens lay, how much sperm they use every time they fertilize a egg, which is about 4 to 6 sperm. So a lot of people look at the sperm that's in the spermatothek and go, oh man, this queen's got enough to last 5 to 6 years. But it's just not one per egg. And then the older she gets, the less viable her sperm are too. So especially the further south you are, the shorter lived the queens are. And there's advantages to having young queens. So even if you don't want to kill your queens and requeen them every year, make some small splits, have some mating nukes with some fresh queens, and you will be a happy beekeeper being queen rich. It's very helpful.
All right. I have a question here from Asher.
All right. How's the best way to downsize for winter? All my hives are packed. Will they do it for themselves? I'm trying to feed to put weight on for the winter, but there are so many bees. Location, Pennsylvania. Thanks for adding that. So make sure you don't feed so much that you're going to start cutting back their brood area. You need enough winter weight, and this is why a lot of times we run double deeps, is so that we can get a lot of food in that top box while still leaving some space maybe in the center of the top box and in the bottom box for her to lay. We want her to lay a lot, as much as possible, going into that winter period, so we get the good winter bees. Once we get really cold, we get into some freezes, they're going to start, the older bees are just going to run themselves out of the hive, and you're going to really get to see what your cluster is. And then at that point, if you're like, holy smokes, this is 14 frames of bees, keep that double deep on there. But then you're like, oh, well, dadgummit, this queen didn't lay as hard, or maybe there were some other problems that caused them to not be quite as big. They're only 5 to 6 frames of a cluster. I would find a day in October or November, if you can do that in Pennsylvania, that is warmish, 50 degrees plus, and I'm going to get my bee suit on, and I would prefer to condense that down to one box. There's definitely advantages to that. And at that time of the year, since it's so cold, you shouldn't have to worry about wax moths damaging the second deep box. And you just want to put all of that food in that bottom box, and you want to put those bees in that bottom box and just shake them down into there. And then you put your lid on. And what that does is it makes it to where the cluster is really close to the lid. And that eliminates most of your condensation problems, because the bees, if they're up against that lid or close, they're going to warm that lid up. The condensation won't build there, especially if you put a piece of insulation. Oh, goodness, yeah. You're not going to have condensation problems above the bees. Where you run into a lot of condensation problems is when you don't have a big hive in a double deep, and it's like a 5-frame cluster in the bottom box, because that's where they usually start, work their way up. But all of that warm air, moist, hot air goes all the way up that double deep. It condenses on the cold woodenware up above, and that's where you get some condensation drip down onto your bees. So a lot of it is location. Big, strong colonies consume a lot of condensation. So, and it depends. I mean, there's some people that actually put snow in their hives during winter months because they're in a dry area where it's so stinking cold that the bees' condensation freezes, and they find that a little snow on the bees as it melts actually gives them some water. That's extreme cold. Most of us will never see that. But there's a lot of variables with beekeeping. So maybe that helped give you a kind of an idea of what you have. I usually just shake them out, and then I'll just store the equipment. When you have a bunch of bees, usually you'll find some, these need more, these need less, and then whatever's equipment's left over gets just stored away. And that time of the year, late, I don't worry about wax moths. All I really am concerned with is keeping the mice out of that equipment.
Excellent. Thomas had a comment here for you.
Oh, head and shoulders. Well, thank you, but I just learn every day, and trying to learn more all the time. I love it. I absolutely love the bee industry. Thank you for letting me be a part of your lives in beekeeping. It's a lot of fun. Texas barbecue is a diet food. Well, I don't know. I mean,
as long as it's not Buc-ee's, right?
Don't be messing with Buc-ee's now. I get my cheap diesel from Buc-ee's. And they're open late of a night too. But yeah, barbecue is good and good for you. It's soul food. You can't eat healthy all the time. I love organic and healthy stuff, but some days you just need some brisket, if you know what I'm saying.
Now you're making me hungry. I got a long ways to drive to a Buc-ee's, man. Gee,
I know. Well, I'm just like, sure. I mean, it'd be all good if we probably ate a little healthier, but some days you just need a good piece of bread, big old slap of butter, and a bunch of honey on it. Good and good for you. Let Myra Teal teach the honey show. She probably could do a pretty good job, but I'm pretty sure she's gunning for a lot of those ribbons this year, and we can't have her teaching if she's going after the ribbons. Last year was an unusual year for her. She had some things come up with the family and was only able to enter one thing in the entire show, and the show was massive. And I asked her, I'm like, oh, are you ready? And she's like, Cayman, all this happened. I was only able to enter into the black jar. And we had hundreds of contestants in that, and sure enough, she won first place. Absolutely blew me away. And I'm like, that woman, even if she only enters one thing into the show, she just finds a way to get a ribbon somehow. I was happy for her.
Sorry, I had to time out Jake. Jake Osborne said the Buc-ee's has terrible barbecue. I had to time him out.
Oh, you got to time him out.
Yeah, time him out for a good 10 seconds. Hold on. You actually had some questions here. I just want to. Oh, this one from David Cook.
Oh, what's your website to find the classes coming up? So Chris is going to post that link down below if you don't mind, Chris. And it's
Do
just,
you, do you want the expo? I think he might be talking about where you're speaking. That's why I left it for you.
oh, yeah, I only have two more places I'm speaking this year. I'm speaking in Florida at the Florida State Beekeepers Association. That is coming up here on the, I believe, the 3rd through the 5th in October. And then I'm speaking in Virginia the third weekend, if I'm not mistaken. And that'll be a lot of fun too. So I'll be at those places. And then the rest of the year, I'm just working on bees and expo stuff.
All right. Hold on. You had one there. Here from Roy. Excuse me. From
I got one. Haha, I grabbed it. So Peoria, Illinois. So that's up there by John with Hillco. It's flat up there. I've driven through Illinois several times now, and it is so flat up there, corn and soybeans. But just when I took my bees to Wisconsin, every time I drive through there, I'm like 2 miles or 3 miles from John Hill. So the first time I just dropped in unannounced, and he's just like, "Oh, great!" Just when I thought this day couldn't get any weirder, here I am. And then I just kind of stop by and say hello. It's really a neat little store to visit. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and it's exciting to see a young family like the Hill family get into bees and stuff like that. We definitely need more competition in the industry to just keep everybody accountable. That's all I'm saying, and I'll leave it at that. It's good to have healthy, free market American competition.
Okay, you had a question here from Roy.
Question: been feeding over 2 months after honey harvest and can't get the hives to gain in weight. Goldenrod flow doesn't seem to be helping. In Piedmont, South Carolina, feeding is getting expensive. Oh, yeah, absolutely it does. So this year, I averaged about 50-ish pounds per hive in Tennessee. We had a very poor year. And that also means I had to feed a lot more this year too. Goodness, I had to feed a lot more. And so it is pretty expensive. Especially, I'm able to buy it by the tote from Man Lake, so that's helpful. But yeah, the feeding is quite expensive. A thicker syrup at 2 to 1 does help, but just feed, 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 feed. I really want 50 to 60 pounds of winter weight for my bees, and never less than 3 deep frames of honey or syrup, which would be about 21 pounds of food.
All right. Sherry had another question here for you.
Should I insulate underneath a horizontal hive in a Canadian winter? The top is insulated. Ooh, so there are several different parts of Canada, and some of them are more mild than others. All of them are way more extreme than Tennessee, and I do not claim to be an expert for wintering because I've never wintered in an area that really was cold at all. So my friend Etienne Tardif, who will be teaching the microscope class and has also done several wintering videos with me. I have some on YouTube with him, and he has a channel. Just his name, Etienne Tardif. He would be a great resource for this. Honestly, though, insulation is most valuable on the lid. 80%, from what I remember, of the heat goes through the lid and the top parts of the hive. I think primarily what I would be concerned with on the rest of it is preventing strong cold winds going in the entrance. But this is again where I know the general stuff, the advanced stuff, especially for hard, long winters like Canada. You really need to talk to somebody in that region. I just don't have the experience. But insulation is, I think insulation is underutilized in the South, to be honest. I don't at this point. This is something that we're wanting to get to. I'm hoping to have maybe up to 2 people hired on full time by the beginning of next year. There's so many things that we need to do. We have several things in the work. We have merchandise, not just Bee Expo, but also some Cayman Reynolds merchandise. This is just one of the collars right here, but we have some KR hats. We're just experimenting with a lot of things. On our website, we want to have the events that I'm going to be at We also want to have links to, we partner with a lot of companies and you can save on those items. It's kind of like Apame, Apis Tactical. I mean, you don't have to go and buy those things. It's not like they're necessities, but if you're going to go ahead and buy them, you might as well get 10% off going through our link if there's no other deal going on. And so we want to have kind of a uniform way of sharing all that information. So we'll have a new website coming up in the future. I don't fully understand that one right there, Chris. Chris, can you explain that one?
I think he's saying in Canada he would die, much less his bees that far north. Talking about Canada.
Oh, yeah, for
okay,
sure.
I have to kind of rip the Band-Aid off. We gotta.
So we're kind of looking into that. And unfortunately, I'm having a hard time pinning down good musicians to play with. I'm talking about with my brother. We have the money to pay them. I'm having a hard time finding people that will. You got to be able to practice with these folks. I don't want to do a poor product on the stage. So I would love to bring the bluegrass back this year, and we're going to attempt to, but that's pending. And we got bigger fish to fry too.
Camden had a question for you here.
Well, you have local honey at the conference. So we're going to have all kinds of honey. One thing I failed to mention is we have the largest honey swap, as far as I'm aware, in North America, and maybe the biggest in the world, definitely one of the biggest. And we have just thousands upon thousands of jars, almost 8,000 jars were swapped in the official honey swap, and that's where you can bring a certain amount of jars and we will swap them for you, a 2-ounce bear or a half-pound jar. We just have to keep it uniform for the sake of our sanity, because that's a lot of jars to mix and match. So you'll get honey from California, you'll get honey from Texas, you'll get honey from Kentucky, you'll get honey from all parts of the United States, and you'll get some from Canada and a few other places as well. So we have some people bringing some stuff from the UK this year. And we had a bunch of people come from out of the country last year. So there's a nice honey swap, and it's free to enter. You just need to follow the rules. It's very simple. We'll swap it for you. Or if you want to swap it all yourself, you meet somebody there and like, hey, did you bring some honey to swap? Yeah. Why don't you swap? You can do that too. So there will be people selling honey there. We have companies that make all kinds of creamed honey and flavored honeys. We have regular honey too. There's a guy that does honey creaming at the conference, and you can pick these people's brains and learn about how to cream honey. There's a lot of really cool people at the expo, and a lot of people don't know who they are because they're not on YouTube or don't have a big social media platform. But then when you go to these events like this one, you'll run into somebody that you've never met before, and you find out they're really cool people and they're really knowledgeable about certain types of things.
All right. 2 questions here about the expo. First one.
Will you ever have the expo in a different location / state? So we've moved it before. It's likely that at some point we probably will move it again. There's not a lot of places in the country that really work well. We got to have it centrally located to a degree. It can't be like in the tip of Florida, and it definitely can't be up in Wisconsin. Well, I mean, it could be, but we're not going to. It's too far from me. I've got to keep my family fairly close. California is really too far away, and the West is too wide. So we could move, but it's not going to be much more than a handful of hours west, handful of hours east, north, or south. And there's just not a lot of venues that work. Louisville's great because the parking there's tons of it. The logistics for bringing in semis is easy. If we're all fighting like at downtown Atlanta, downtown Nashville, downtown Branson or whatever it is, and the parking's terrible and you're just fighting for everything, it makes a miserable experience. And so I like the kind of fair / farm exposition center that the Kentucky Center is, and it's right there close to the airport, so it's convenient for the people that fly. It's just super easy to get product in and out, and since we move like 30 plus semis of product, the logistics are massive on making sure that's as easy as possible. It doesn't matter if the speakers are cool, if the trade show's cool, but if it's a miserable experience getting in and out of the building and driving through the town, then you're going to remember that. And so we're really trying to avoid any little stressors because ultimately we don't want any of that to happen. We want it to be just a positive experience from start to finish as much as we can control.
And just to bookend what you're saying there, I mean, we have looked at more than 20
Everywhere.
different locations. I mean, we've toured different locations, we've gone to locations, we've called the number of places that only have parking garages. Which, if you can imagine a truck with a trailer or just a large truck trying to drive up a hilarious clown ramp on a parking
Yeah.
structure, yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So
It's like, yeah, bring your semis. As a former semi driver, yeah, we have semi parking for your companies. They have to drive up a parking garage like 2 to 3 stories, and then to this little tiny dock. And I'm like, I've got years of experience, and this is intimidating. And it's all one way streets in downtown Louisville, and it makes me concerned in these downtown places. We were looking at Birmingham like a year and a half ago, and I'm looking out the hotel right across from the expo there in Birmingham, and someone's like shooting themselves up with a needle. And I'm like, yeah, this is like 50 feet from the entrance to the conference center. We're not doing downtown Birmingham. Um, and the parking was just hideous. It's like, yeah, there's 500 spots a quarter mile over here, and then you can walk over here. Yeah, let's walk through downtown Birmingham at 7 p.m. of a night in January. No, let's not. So there's just a lot of things we have to consider. It's actually a lot more complicated than I ever dreamed. It's not as
well,
complicated as beekeeping, though.
Jennifer,
Raleigh.
I don't know if I specifically looked at that one or not. I'll give it a look. Like Cayman said, we're always looking. So I'll give that a look. But what Cayman didn't specifically touch on is the difficulty for us is not only do we have a massive trade show where we need to have both load in, load out for semis, but we also need parking for lots of people. But we're not just an expo. We need to be able to have classroom space with proper speaking and everything else. So
Yeah,
um,
it's tricky. You would think there would be
yeah,
more
it's
facilities available, but
yeah.
there's not. This one actually looks really good. I've looked into that and driven past it a few times and haven't gone in and toured it much. But it's a pretty far south Georgia, and it's not close to a major airport. But it does look like a really nice facility as far as it's got that farming state fair type feel, easy to get in and out of. Definitely not close to a bunch of big cities that are a little dangerous of a nighttime. So I've looked into that. It's a little further south than maybe we would like, but I'm actually looking into that a little bit more.
There's another question. Hold on.
So, this about the whole Kentucky is the better state says nobody except a person from Kentucky. Kentucky has a lot of great people in it. But, I mean, what are you guys known for? Racing things and basically drinking beer while racing things and bourbon. So, I mean, hence NASCAR's creation. Uh, all jokes aside, some of the finest people are in Kentucky that help at our expo, but I will never not tease Kentucky at any given chance, as they tease us.
You had a question. I totally lost it. I lost it. If you asked a question that hasn't been answered yet, please feel free to
Yeah,
throw
drop it
back
down
in.
below.
So yeah.
So getting back to a couple things really quick, we have a lot of updates on the website. The vendors are up there. More will be added soon. And if there's any vendors that you don't see, let them know. I found a couple of them that just haven't been paying attention. Obviously, they're running their businesses too. So if there's a company that you'd like to see there, send them a shout out. Say, hey, I'd love to be able to see your booth and your products live at the expo. And that always helps them out and whatnot. There is several things up there. There'll be updates on speakers. There's the Honey Swap information. There's hotels and travel. Apparently, there's sold out rooms and it's sold out at the Crown Plaza, but I believe there's another block or two that we can get. So I've already sent them an email. I'm waiting for a reply. We got everything from lay-in ties. One of the things that we're looking for besides bee lifters is we're also looking for a company that'll build top bar hives, AZ hives, unique stuff like that. There's not a lot of people that do it, but there are people who really want to see that there, and they're very hard to pin down, and there's just not a lot of people doing it. So horizontal hives as well. We've had a company do that for years. Unfortunately, they're doing stuff with family. They're going out of country, and that's great. So I need a horizontal hive person there too this year. So the Bee Expo is way more than just typical laying straw hives. It's just really about beekeeping in general. We have a good time, and there's people from all walks of life in beekeeping there. So, see, I'd like to hear a good speaker talk about bee venom therapy. I would too. You got any suggestions? Drop them. Too bad the horses are gone from Churchill at that time. We have great literature. Great.
Camden, what I pulled your okay.
No, go ahead. You just keep going, Chris.
Camden, you said the website isn't working. Is there something specific that's not working? Let me know. I'm happy to try to help you. Give you some ideas. Camden was just talking about the silent auction.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the silent auction, we perfect. Have the video came and posted about the information, as well as the online form he talked about here, or the print and bring with you form. So
yeah, we'll need both of those preferably, so we can just. I mean, it's so busy at the expo. If we have your information beforehand, we'll already know what you're bringing. We can even go pick it up and then just have a filled out paper form here on the right hand side. And then we can just show up to your booth. We've already got that information, who you are, and all that stuff. And we just take it and put it in the silent auction, and boom, it's really simple. So you don't have to take time away from either one, spending time at the expo, or if you're a vendor, time away from your booth. It is a very, very busy experience when you have 3,200 people chatting about bees and talking bee research and just all kinds of stuff. And G. Clark has this question, Chris, and you can. Oh, cool picture. Love that. You can show G. Clark. They're up there at the top. There is the trade show and vendor registration. You can just go into there and they'll have all kinds of information on that. And there's just a form and everything, details. Pretty simple to fill out. As far as the honey show goes, that's something that is free for anybody to enter. Every year that gets bigger and better. And the American Honey Show Training Council does a very great job. We've dubbed this event the North American Honey and Beeswax Championship, being the premier and largest event in North America for all honey beekeeping related things. There's like almost 80 categories. It is massive. So it's not just honey and beeswax. There's beeswax art. There is all kinds of flavored honeys. There's quilt categories. There's display baskets for honey related stuff and photography. There's all kinds of stuff. And the winner of this event, the winner and the runner up, Grand Champion and Grand Champion Reserve, both get free rides to the next year. And of course, there's American made ribbons given out to all of the winners as well. So it's a wonderful show, and it's just really cool to see it. There's antiques in there from beekeeping days gone by to see. Lots and lots of fun. Appreciate those folks that volunteer their time to make that show happen. All right. So, Chrome. Surely something besides Chrome works on this. You don't use Chrome, do you, Chris?
I use Firefox, but it just depends on what you're doing. And there's a million possible little issues if you have certain types of blockers or an older computer, blah blah. There's a million possibilities, but I'm sorry it's not working for you.
So here's a great question right here, and definitely. So Laurel and I own the Bee Expo, and unless we just die tomorrow without putting in all the right protocols, those things are just going to be there. You have your password and all of your sign-in information. Those videos are just going to stay up there. And so all the 2024 videos you'll just be able to watch at your leisure this year, next year, the year after that, whatever. And that's one of the perks of getting to come with the conferences, these professionally recorded videos. And you'll never be able to see all the lectures anyways. There's multiple ones going at a time. And this really takes the pressure off of you because you're like, I really want to go listen to this speaker. But man, I just ran into this really cool vendor or this really cool individual, and we're just having a great time chatting. I'd rather do that It's okay. Do that. Then you get a free copy afterwards that we will send to you, and then you can watch those videos at your leisure in your house. So you can spend plenty of time networking and taking advantage of the discounts at the expo. Just have fun. That's is alcohol available at the show? No, none of that. There's there's certain rules some of these trade shows have, and maybe there's some type of licensing, but no, we don't have that. There is unlimited free coffee and tea and hot chocolate by Copper Canyon Coffee. Yeah. So if you guys drink coffee, I do highly recommend it because it is delicious. But also they really
Unbelievable.
support, yeah, they support beekeepers as well, and they send out seeds for honeybees and other pollinators with their coffee. So even people who are non-beekeepers are getting involved into planting habitat for bees. Sean and his family have a great coffee business, it's just called Copper Canyon Coffee Roasters, and they donate their time. Yes, hey Korhan, this is the guy with Apame right here. And so, the Copper Canyon guys provide a great service. If it wasn't for them and several other individuals, we wouldn't be able to offer coffee for free. And it is awesome to be able to just get that coffee and tea, and this year hot chocolate whenever you need it. Bob is got all kinds of great information, but he kind of talks like this, and it might kind of put you to sleep a little bit. And so that coffee might just keep you awake during Bob's lecture. During mine, you won't have a problem falling asleep. You're just going to, there's so much of foolish behavior, you just can't miss it. So, that being said, is there any more bee questions, Chris? We got any of those?
Well, somebody's been asking, and I apologize. And I just said that you probably wouldn't know specifics, but here I can post it here for you. Maybe somebody in the chat knows. I told him to reach out to maybe Castle Hives because he's in Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, so a lot of this region, because of a lack of rainfall, and maybe not in that part of the country, but definitely in Kentucky and Tennessee and northern Alabama, most places are dry. And the problem with the fall plants is there's not near as many as spring plants, and they're very shallow rooted, as opposed to a tulip poplar tree or a basswood or a black locust or a deep rooted tree. And there's just a lot of diversity in spring. In fall, we have very little diversity, and the plants are shallow rooted, so they're greatly affected by a lack of rain or too much rain. So fall flows are really hit and miss, and this can really affect your bees. And then of course there's some places where in Ohio and Indiana where there's just so much agriculture, there's just not a lot of wildflowers. So a lot of it is just location dependent. We have yards 8 miles apart, and it's amazing the difference in performance just between 8 miles. So and every year varies too.
I mean, I think the only thing really that I've seen personally I'm in Northwest Ohio by Toledo. The only thing I've really seen has been goldenrod, and we have a ton of goldenrod. But otherwise, it's been pretty quiet.
So Sherry is with the Bee Supply, and she puts out a lot of great education and information for beekeepers with their newsletter and all kinds of stuff, and doing some online interviews. But she's asking if we're going to have those muffins the size of a big man's fist. And yes, we plan to have that and even more. And those also are free to everyone who comes. And so there is more than just your ticket. You get to experience the bee industry in one place, stuff outside of the bee industry. We have so many new innovations this year coming. Some of them are Varroa treatments. We have people talking about better genetics. We have all kinds of cool things to help extract and stuff on the way. And I've signed way too many NDAs to be able to say everything I want to, but it's exciting. And we're definitely having muffins the size of a big man's fist, and lots of cookies and various things as well. So your diet will perish at the North American Honeybee Expo.
We can make that a shirt.
Your diet will die at the expo. And obviously Apame, there's several companies in here. This is a company we've never had before, but we're excited about their very unique products. and all that kind of stuff. We had a good year up in Wisconsin with the linden trees, basswood trees, and that was exciting. So this was my first year getting to go or choosing to go to another state for honey production. We had a poor year here in Tennessee, and I really shouldn't have done. And I should have probably focused more on my YouTube channel and various things. But the beekeep, I got into this whole thing because I love doing bees. And I just had an opportunity to go to Wisconsin, and I just absolutely loved every minute of it. I love beekeeping more than I love doing YouTube and doing the expo. I do these things because primarily somebody needs to do them. It may seem like it's just a conference or just a YouTube channel on the front end, and sometimes that's all that they are. But we do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that's affecting innovation, that is putting companies together to create new opportunities. We're putting people together. We are propping up good scientists and beekeepers who are already fantastic on their own. We're just helping give them a platform. And I'm very proud of the stuff that we do that most people don't realize, and that's okay. But the bee industry is precious to me. And if it's to thrive and to grow, we definitely need to put a lot of effort and energy into it. And so we will continue to do that. But in my heart of hearts, I'm a beekeeper, and I'm really wanting to get back up to 500 hives. I'm just going to need to get some employees. So, Chris, did you hear that? 500 hives.
Yeah.
I've been talking to Bob Benny about it. Bob is the man. He's like, Cayman, you need to load your truck like this. This is a good forklift for somebody of your size. And he's like, I remember when I was your age. You know, you're kind of like me. You're just, well, you know, you're a lot littler. I'm like, Bob, you know, thank you very much for that. I already get it enough from Natalie. Well, folks, we have said a lot. We are going to be doing this again. Thank you so much for jumping in with us, asking your bee questions, videos to come about getting bees ready for winter, more information about the North American Honeybee Expo. Thanks for all of our new members who have joined and supported us. We'll be having some new information in the next week or two on how you can, especially if you're the upper tier in the member group, where you can get onto some text-based chats so we can converse back and forth, and you can send pictures about maybe this is what my bees are doing, and that'll be great. We can do that, but we're always going to have this live chat, our normal videos, and everything that we've always had before that's been free to stay free. The membership is just going to be a totally separate thing to itself. And thank you guys for understanding, and thanks for everyone supporting us in every way that you do. Thanks for all the companies coming in and being a part of our expo. We're excited to serve you again this year. We're way ahead of where we were last year, and that means we're going to be able to offer and do so much more. Chris, thanks for helping us out. Everybody, take care. Happy beekeeping, and we'll see you in the next video.